In the last video, we talked about what happens when you lose motivation, when it's not exciting anymore. The things that you were doing feel harder to keep doing. That's also the spot where you're more likely to quit, because when you started, your behavior was being carried by motivation. And as I said, motivation doesn't last long enough to carry you to the outcome that you want. And so the question becomes, once you lose motivation, what actually keeps somebody consistent after that? And that's what we're going to talk about in this video. You might think that consistency comes from discipline alone. Like, you assume that disciplined people are just mentally tougher. Like, they can just keep forcing themselves to execute after they run out of motivation and energy. But when you watch winners' behavior over time, you realize the people who stay consistent, they're not waking up every day fighting the same internal battle. They're not trying to recreate motivation every day. At some point, the behavior stopped being something that they were trying to do. It just became something that they do. As long as behavior lives in the category of something I'm trying to do, then it's going to stay dependent on your emotions. And emotions are fickle little creatures, right? Some days, the shit that you do is going to feel meaningful, and it's going to feel easy and awesome. And then some days it's not. Some days you're going to be focused. Other days you're going to be distracted. If your behavior depends on emotion, then your behavior is always going to rise and fall on how you feel, which means that your progress is always going to be inconsistent. You go hard when you're feeling good. You don't do shit when you don't feel good. Now, in my own experience, there are about 3 to 5 days per month where you wake up and you feel completely on your shit. You're motivated, you're focused, you're ready to do whatever needs to be done. Now, that's about 10 to 15% of the time, which means 85 to 90% of the time, you gotta show up unmotivated. So if the thing carrying your behavior, motivation, only shows up a few days a month, the behavior will never stick long enough to change your life. That's why real change happens when the behavior stops being something that you're trying to do and becomes something you just do. So, what will actually push you across the line? What you want is for the behavior to stop being negotiable. As long as it's something that you're trying to do, there's always a negotiation happening in your head. And when there's a negotiation, you're negotiating based on feelings. We already said you're only going to feel good about 10 to 15% of the time. That's why people fall in and out of consistency, because the behavior is still being negotiated. But when something becomes a standard, the negotiation disappears. A standard is a decision. It's not something you're hoping to do or you're trying to do. It's something that you've decided to do. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't wake up in the morning deciding whether you're motivated to brush your teeth. You don't debate it. You don't wait for the right mindset to show up. You do it because somewhere along the way, that behavior stopped being optional. It became part of who you are. Once something crosses that line, motivation stops mattering, because the behavior isn't based on how you feel that day. It's based on a decision that you've already made. The people who stay consistent aren't more motivated than everybody else. They just remove the daily negotiation that usually happens. So the question becomes, how do you actually move a behavior from something that you're trying to do to something that you just do? Because it doesn't happen automatically. You see people in your life who are always trying and never doing, right? They tell you they're gonna do something, or they're gonna stop doing something. And then the next time you see them, you bring it up and they say, I'm trying. And this is exactly what we're talking about. They set a goal, they got motivated, they do it for a little while, and then their motivation goes away and they stop doing it. Or they're gonna quit something, and then life gets stressful and they go right back to it. People repeat the same cycle for years. You've done it, I've done it. We've all been guilty of it. And the way that you break that cycle is simple. You decide ahead of time that that behavior is no longer optional. Not when you feel good, not when you're motivated, just period. Now, it's easy for me to sit here and say that because that decision, it's simple. But we all know it's not easy because the moment you start living differently than you used to, your mind is gonna push back because it likes what's familiar. It likes the habits that you already live in. So when you start operating from a different standard, there's going to be resistance and it's going to sound logical. It's going to sound like, I'm tired. I'll start Monday. It's been a long day. I'll just have one. Whether that's drinking, smoking, whatever the vice is, right? And it's in those moments, whether you retreat back to who you were or you advance to who you want to become. Because if the behavior is still negotiable, those thoughts are always going to win. But if you've already decided the behavior is not optional, the conversation's over. You just do the thing, or you just don't do the thing. Look, if you understand that the resistance is coming, it becomes easier to notice it when it shows up and to push through it. Because once you push through it, you stop checking how you feel before you act. You stop waiting for motivation to show up. You just follow through on the decision that you already made. Motivation will never last, which means if motivation is the thing that your behavior depends on, you're never going to get where you want to go. You'll start strong and then you'll slow down. And then you start over again. And you will do that for the rest of your life. The people who actually change their lives, they stop relying on motivation. They figure out how to stop negotiating with themselves. They decide who they're going to be, what they're going to do, and they do it regardless of how they feel. Once you do that long enough, that behavior, that personality, that identity, it becomes a standard in your life. And once it becomes a standard, motivation becomes irrelevant because it's no longer something that you're trying to do. It's just how you operate. Now, if this is the kind of work you want to do on yourself, the link in the description will walk you through the first step. If you're ready to stop restarting your life every few weeks, start with the rebuild. It's a free guide. I'll link it below.